I was studying Chinese history at McGill University and then at the University of British Columbia. So the idea of going on the exchange was very important for me. And I applied a couple of times and didn't succeed at the first time. And I think it was the third time I applied that I was accepted. When I was in China, there were hardly any foreigners. It's not like now, where there are so many foreigners. And the foreigners that were there were diplomats and their families. There were 300 foreign experts, and then in the whole country there was about 10,000 foreign students. So of those three groups, the people who were closest to what was going on down at the bottom in China were foreign students. We could read the signs on the Dazabao, for example, and understand what they said. We went in a cohort of people. So I arrived in China with 14 other, with a total of 14 students from Canada, and you know, particularly for our first 6 months, we were at Beiyou. You were all there. We could support each other, and could you know, I became very close friends with several of those people, and even some who I hadn't seen in 35 years, I was in contact with, and it was like very old friends, as if we were continuing a conversation that just had ended in mid-sentence and then started again. The thing that sort of impresses me the most about the new China is how wealthy it is, and how and why there are people who are still poor, but there are many people who are much better off. When I was in China, in that period, everybody was poor. So even as an exchange student, we would get 120 yuan a month from the Chinese government as our spending money. I got $100 Canadian a month to pay from the Canadian government to pay for travel, which worked out to over 300 yuan a month. This is an era where the average worker in Beijing made 50 yuan a month. So we were rich. We really were rich. I think a real problem for Canada and Canadian society is that there aren't enough people who understand how China works or understand things about China, and this is going to be to the detriment of the development of this country. So I think the more people that we have who have had experience in China, who can speak Chinese, who can also understand the way business is done in China, for example, the more to the benefit is that of this country. I was just in China 3 weeks ago with my dean and a colleague and two colleagues, and we met with 3 of the Chinese normal universities to discuss joint programs, and the reaction was very positive. And this is a way of creating opportunities for Canadian students to go to China and Chinese students to come here. But it's based on the idea that if you want to train the best scholars in the world, the best researchers in the world, you can't do it just within one country or even one university, let alone in one country. It needs to do it with people need to have significant international experience. And that's the view of many academic leaders in China. And it's one that I think makes a great deal of sense in Canada as well. Of course, one of the things about Canada that people don't understand is that it's always been linked to China. The Chinese community in Canada is older than Canada. It goes back to the Fraser River Gold Rush in 1858, which was 9 years before Canada came together as the current political entity. When European explorers came here, they weren't looking for Canada, they were looking for ways to get to China. The reason that we built a railway across the country in order to unify it together. Well, the real intention was the China trade between China and Europe as being a vehicle for that. That's what paid for it. And the list goes on and on.